Hello and welcome to this webinar, Autonomous Networks, Enabling the Future of the Telco Industry. I'm Giles Cummings, founder and CEO of FutureNet World, and I'm delighted to welcome you all today. As you may have seen during the month of January, we've been running an industry directions campaign focused on the theme autonomous networks, and you can find various articles, white papers, features and interviews on the FutureNet World website that will, I'm sure, be of interest to you. This webinar is a culmination of the campaign, and I want to thank Futurewei Technologies who have sponsored these activities. Our aim today is not to focus on the concept of autonomous networks, which I think will be, most of you will be familiar with, but to really explore the commercial opportunities and examine the use cases. I'm really hoping our speakers will focus on what needs to be done to leverage this opportunity and how we as an industry can drive this and realize the vision. So before we start, just some very brief housekeeping from me. The format for today will be a panel discussion, so no slides, no presentations. You're in listen-only mode, but we do want to make this interactive, so please post any questions throughout the session, and we'll try and get through as many of these questions as we can. And we are recording today's session, so you'll receive a recording of today's session after we close. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Anil Rao, who is Principal Analyst at Analysys Mason, who will moderate today's discussion. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Anil, and the floor is yours. So I'm going to drop off your screens.
Excellent, thank you, Giles. Autonomous networks, so great topic. You know, automation in general, I think, has been well, it's not new, right? Automation is not new, but suddenly it's you know, in the past few years, it's suddenly shot into limelight. And as you can imagine, we at Analysys Mason are covering this topic increasingly. What is automation, what it means to service providers, what it means to the vendors, what it means to the broader ecosystem, industry bodies, standards, definitions, organizations, you know, you name it. So we've been explaining and doing a lot of primary research on this topic of automation, and you know, it is all encompassing as you can imagine. But autonomous networks is sort of taking automation to a whole another level, isn't it? I mean, it's in the name, autonomous networks, and it sort of takes the name from the other popular phrase, autonomous vehicles, and it's an obvious nod to what we mean by autonomous vehicles, to what we now mean by autonomous networks. So self-driving, self-healing, all the fun bits that we're gonna try and capture as part of, you know, what are the key capabilities of an autonomous network. So hopefully through this panel discussion, we will try to shed some light on you know, to start with, what do we mean by autonomous networks? I know Giles said we want to focus more on the commercial side. We'll come to that because there can be a lot of confusion on what we mean by autonomous networks beyond, you know, the fancy things that we say about, you know, being self-driving and so on. So we'll try to capture some of that and see whether there is a broad agreement within the panel. And then we'll immediately jump to the 3 or 4 topics that we want to discuss today and focus, you know, zero in on, you know, what are the use cases, what are the, you know, this 5G, edge, IoT, you know, fantastic areas that you know, places where you could apply autonomous networks to. We'll explore some of the use cases and then get into, you know, the challenges, you know, or standardization and so on and so forth. So before we do that, I want to introduce our great panelists today that have joined me to discuss this topic. First, introducing Christian Maitre, Group Director, Development and Strategy of Smart Cities at Orange. Welcome, Christian. We've got Diego Lopez, who is the chair at ETSI ISG NFV working group, and he's also a technology expert from Telefonica. So great participation from two operators, as well as with standards body hat on with Diego coming from an ETSI perspective. And then we've got Dong Sun, who's the Chief Business Strategist for Digital Transformation at Futurewei Technologies. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. So as I said, so before we get into the first topic, which is the new customers and new opportunities, Diego, Christian, and Dong, we were talking about this. So it's important to sort of frame the whole discussion around autonomous networks, right? So as Giles was saying, there's plenty of material out there, but let's try and crystallize some of that thinking that has already gone in those written reports and videos and what have you, and sort of set the stage for our audience today. And Diego, you had some really interesting views, a philosophical view on this autonomous network. So let's start with you, and then yeah. So, and then we'll go around and get others' views as well. We'll start with Diego. Yeah.
First of all, just a note, Anil, I probably have not, I'm not sure I have updated my LinkedIn profile and all the like. I'm not any longer chair of the ETSI NFV group. I am chairing the NOC, the group of operators participating there. I am trying to work in another areas as well, and the chair of ETSI NFV was really time consuming, so I'm trying to coordinate what we operators do there, not more than that, which is, is interesting anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we're talking about autonomy and how the autonomous systems in nature behave, my preferred analogy is about nervous systems, is about how we have all the I would say all the animals, at least that we know, have at least two levels of autonomy. One is the automatic autonomy provided by reflexes, and is about just you get a prod in your arm, you move it, or you get a bang in your finger, you move it away. This is one thing. The second one is when you make something that is volunteer, something that your will is behind. So something that you decide to go and buy some vegetables at the grocery, or to drive, etc. And this is something that is your decision. Or a dog decides to bark, or a bee to fly to a particular flower. It's not necessarily that it's, well, if you think about it, there could be even a third level in which we're talking about having self-consciousness, etc. Right now, these three levels of autonomy, I would say that we are still completing the first one and building the foundations for the second. That's and for sure the third, which will be the self-conscious network, is something that probably we will not see, and hopefully will not see, because you remember Skynet and the Terminators and all the like.
Right. So we don't want it to be a fully autonomous network, but we want to have somebody, humans, to be in full control and be able to sort of switch it off if required, or override the so-called autonomous network. So the networks are autonomous only to the extent that where humans can still have full control over those networks. So yeah, so I'll just go around. Christian, do you want to do you have a view, react to Diego's point, and maybe have your own views on this? Yeah.
No, I think it's quite similar to Diego's view. So yeah, today I am managing the development of smart territories logics in Orange for the group, and previously I was managing IT modernization since years, a lot of years, about making the IT more and more automated. Which is really different. That's the level one that Diego was talking about. And really, today we are all I think in all over the world, in different companies, not only telcos, but all the companies just all still are trying to automate many basic or complex processes to spend less time, less human resources on the basic things. So RPA or other things like that were just some kind of first level of things, but we are far from being really automated, and we are still even more far about the autonomous networks or autonomous systems. But what we would like to do is really to reach this autonomous level, whatever it is, self-conscious level, maybe Skynet in the future. I'm not sure, but really, I think today, facing the different crises we have been in since a couple of months now, we need definitely to have a lot of automated, largely automated or autonomous systems to enable direct operations without any kind of human touch, because we need to have these guys, the field operators, to do a lot of other things to enable crisis, just to avoid different outage due to this kind of situation. So yeah, my vision is really that today we have a lot of things to do to automate things, but we need to think about the new level. And the new level is completely new. It's not only thinking step per step to transform things from the automated level to the autonomous one. So with a lot of people, like with Don mainly, and with other guys from other companies, we were talking about autonomous networks since 2 years now, and we found a way to develop some kind of a scenarization of this autonomy transition from now up to the maximum of level. So it's about 5 levels, and we also try to find out how we can structure a new kind of IT system, IT global system, network systems, and so on together, to be as simple as possible, to be as autonomous as possible. So that's really what we would like to do, and not only to have this transition, you know, this step-per-step transformation from the current IT and network system to something more autonomous, which is, I think, really not at all realistic completely. So that's what I would like to say, really. Greenfield on autonomous networks with the new technologies, the new concept of technology today. 5G is definitely something which will help this, and well, we can come back to this after that about technology.
I think there are these new technologies, new enabling technologies, isn't it? So we talk about, you know, Diego is sort of lived and breathed this for many years now. It's this whole NFV evolution that we saw all these years, and now we're talking about cloud native computing, and software defined networking, and you know, key capabilities that are sort of inherently provide the, you know, the nuts and bolts of automating the network, right? And that sort of is much more conducive to build automation, build the level of autonomousness we need more natively, whereas existing networks are you know, the burden of legacy. They were not built with automation in mind. So we're going to continuously, you know, face this hurdle of, you know, how can we deploy more and more automation, or, you know, evolve the existing networks towards autonomous networks. Don, do you have any views on this?
Yeah, thank you, Anil. First of all, I fully agree with Diego and Christian about this, like the automation, autonomy, or the evolution, or even a kind of even you know, more than the evolution, could be even a revolution, right? But to some extent, I like to clarify a couple of terminology here. To some extent, when we use this term, autonomous networks, I think most people, when look at that, they probably mainly focusing on the network side or the underlying network infrastructure. Say, okay, that's kind of a network automation. That's true. Definitely, I think that's a very important perspective. Even if you look at based on the current, the business need and even also the technology maturity. So we intend to start from a kind of a network automation, right? But eventually, we believe these autonomous networks. That's why we use this plural rather than the singular, right? It's more than the network infrastructure automation. So we want, as Christian pointed out, to enable the innovation, enable the new business model, enable the even from the user perspective. We want to this time look at from user perspective, like how in terms of users, like verticals, even consumers, which kind of innovative services, digital services they need, and then how to automate or how to provide easy to use services to them, right? I think that's the ultimate goal of the autonomous network. It's not limited to the network automation, but we can start from certain those perspective, but we need to have this more holistic view, look at it from the top to down, look from the business perspective. So that means we need some more like industry level consensus on this view, right?
Okay. Yeah. So that's a great segue, right? So we were going to get into the new opportunities, new business models, like you said, Dong. So the 5G edge IoT, and there's all these fascinating terms, right? So Christian, if I sort of bring you in for a moment and say, ask you, how are you seeing the application of autonomous networks, at least conceptually at this point? In applying the concepts of autonomous networks to go after these new use cases enabled by 5G edge IoT and so on, and you said you're doing the smart cities. Are you sort of visualizing autonomous networks being the key enabler to enable these use cases?
Yeah, I think there's a good question on that, and also on the chat. Do we need autonomous networks or is it just the usual job of the network to be automated? I think we need both. We need both, and we need to have autonomous networks for where they are absolutely mandatory, where they have a value added, and where also we can maybe decrease some kind of costs. So I think, as example, for instance, is very a simple example. If we can take the example of the agriculture, for instance, if you think about a farmer that has a lot of tractors that are just having the work to be done automatically, like autonomous tractors, if they can have some decision-making systems to go that way or this way, or find if the soil is wet or not wet, to do such more I don't know, traction or whatever. I think this is really the as Dong said, it's not only a question of network, it's a question of intelligence we can add on the system that is able to do much more than just doing the simple thing to be the connectivity. So I think the point is really to understand that in the usual day, in the usual routine that we have as a connectivity in 3G, 4G, 5G, autonomous networks is, well, it's the best way to get something without any kind of footage. But really, the autonomous networks will have absolutely great value in some domains, in some verticals, implementing new services, new types of services that today we even cannot really imagine. So in agriculture, in education, in industry, in medicine, really that will be absolutely important to have networks that are able to self-heal, to self-reconfigure, to self-scale, because of, at that moment, we have a special event, we have a crisis, we have, I don't know, a super traffic due to an event somewhere which is not planned. And today, if we are not able to do that because we need to plan that a long time ago, a long months to create the new architecture and so on. So these kind of networks can be seen as some, let's say, supplementary networks that are able to manipulate some specific use case for these verticals, for instance. And so we secure these verticals. And that can be also the jobs to be done from a telco standpoint, and not to support all the traffics on a single one network or on a single one slice, if we can talk about 5G, but really on specific networks that will be really robust. Self-healing, self-configuration, self-scaling. That is really the domain where we need to implement these kind of networks.
Yeah, you mentioned slicing, isn't it? So I was going to get to the 5G use case and 5G use cases. We talk about, you know, not just about the consumer and enhanced broadband anymore with 5G, isn't it? Yes, you know, we want to do consumer really well. You know, that's what brings us the money, you know, it's a cash cow and so on. But really, as we all know, 5G is not just about consumer. In fact, it's more than consumer. It is about enterprise services, right? So that's why it's sort of, you know, it's very nicely fits in. You know, you do more and more automation, you get to autonomous networks, and then with the power of 5G, networks that can support, you know, ultra low latency use cases and IoT use cases, and then you start to combine things like slicing with edge, so that gives you a better capability to deliver the low latency use cases, and then you start, and then you start innovating on IoT and so on and so forth. So the combination of 5G, edge, IoT, enabled by things like network slicing is going to be a game changer, isn't it, Diego? So if you look at what Christian was saying, you know, sort of the broad industry impacts and the use cases, can you think of any others in addition to Christian said? Do you think it's going to be achievable? And what any of those use cases that you think is going to require a much higher level of autonomy, if you like?
Currently, I don't think that, I mean, that we need a extremely high level of autonomy. Among other things, because in spite of what we tend to believe, that we live revolutions and radical changes, normally things happen step by step. The problem is when you stop and you look behind and you see that you have made a long way. But normally we move step by step, and I believe that precisely the fact that autonomous networks would allow to consume network services in a completely different way as we are now used. This morning I was talking with a colleague and precisely on this, and we were agreeing in the fact that the way that in terms of commercial usage and in terms of use cases, what is going to really change is the way in which users will become able to consume network services. It's not going to be just a single set of services, very small set of services, because you have to control, you have to have people that are deeply specialized in maintaining those particular services, in designing and validating them. In an autonomous network, ideally, you would be able to give orders. Not necessarily very complex orders, but the kind of orders that you can give to a well-trained dog, for example. You can tell it sit, and the dog sits. And something like that in a network is something really serious if you are the owner of the dog, not if you are the trainer or you are the kind of or a super specialist. In the moment we have this, what I believe is that something that has been around for quite a while, that is this idea of ICT technologies, that is information and communication technologies, and that traditionally have been separated. You have the information technologies on one hand, the communication technologies on the other hand, that we wouldn't having sort of a continuum. And that would imply the same way that that in the past, for example, as new programming languages appeared, more complex functions was created, and we have right now an extremely rich set of features and abstractions and conceptual ways of interacting with a computer, it would happen the same with the network. We will learn by knowing that we can tell the network to take a simple action without interacting with our network operator, just interacting with the network. We will ask for more. We will find new ways of integrating what normally we call the application with what currently we distinguish at the network, and go more and more to something that will become transparent, because it will be smart.
Yes.
Autonomous.
Yeah. So the applications. So we need to get to a stage where the applications, whether it's consumer applications or enterprise applications, there was a question here: how do autonomous networks differ for a consumer and an enterprise? I think the level of autonomy will depend on what sort of, I suppose, the SLAs or service quality you're trying to guarantee. So in the case of enterprise SLAs, which tend to be stringent, contractual, and so on, you've got to typically have a high level of autonomy, because you don't want to leave it to chance or have or minimize the level of human intervention. So to Tiago's point, in these cases, then you've got to have the ability where applications, you know, is the holy grail, right? Applications will demand the level of network service quality that they need. So the application performance will drive the needs of the network. So that should be a seamless end-to-end experience for whoever the consumer is, whoever the user of the application is, whether it's a consumer or an enterprise. But that of course is the ultimate holy grail. And if we talk about network slices, you know, being able to support that sort of a use case ultimately, but we have, as we said, we have time to get there. So I just want to move into quickly the next topic of discussion, accelerating innovation and using ecosystems and new engagement models and so on. This doesn't need a lot of introduction, right? We've seen sort of the proliferation of these new industry bodies trying to you know, accelerate innovation, support new ecosystems. Many organizations, right? So we've, you know, TIP is, you know, we've taken a really central role in a lot of things. Open RAN, for example. There's this ONF coming in from a different angle, but they're also throwing their hat in the Open RAN. So there's a lot of initiatives in the industry to drive ecosystem participation, open innovation, and so on. So I just want to get Dong in at this point and get his views on, and maybe from Futurewei's perspective or in general, what do you think of this topic and how you are enabling ecosystem participation for innovation?
Okay, yeah, I think there are something, some very important, you know, perspectives we have to consider. First of all, we have to align on the vision in the industry. As I mentioned, you know, at least people, I think most people already agree on this vision. It's not really something, you know, there are lots of, you know, different view. I think people agree. People like this vision, like to enable the new business model, to enable the network automation. That's the first thing, right? So we are in the same ballpark. That means, and also, I think we also need to, of course, you know, talk about some like a high-level framework together. For example, you know, in the TM forum, we are actually they're defining some framework regarding the somehow the scope of work of the autonomous networks. It's including, as I mentioned, you know, network, you know, automation, but more than that, beyond that, and also including service and also business, you know, automation perspective, right? That's the framework part, and also, of course, the I think the use cases. So we need to also to identify some use case. That should be very important at the starting point, and people can really work together on some real stuff, not just talking about the concept, right? We need this concept, we need to alignment on the vision concept, but we also need to start something. even before we define a perfect world, right, a perfect framework. And of course, in parallel, I believe the standardization is also very important. Also, by the way, I think the industry already started some research and standard work in multiple SDOs, like in the Tianform. They're defining some overall framework, and they also start some the kind of a POC. They call the Catalyst project. For example, Christian and I joined those projects, and also now, if I remember correctly, there are around 10 projects there. The POC project, more than 60 companies, including all the big names of the CSP and the vendors already there. And also, of course, in ETSI, Diego is no better than me. I think there are also several projects are relevant to this topic, and also in the 3GPP. I know also they are doing lots of works already. So I think all these people already started lots of works on this topic, but next step, the more important thing is the next step, right? So people started somehow from the different perspective or from the different expertise or different area. That's good, right, as a starting point. But now I think it's the right time. We need to move on. We need to work together. We need to align on the vision, on the framework, or even something as Christian mentioned, maybe align on even autonomous network definition and autonomous network levels. It's similar as you mentioned, Anil, autonomous driving, right? When people talk about the level 2, level 3, level 4, and at least we have a rough idea what that means, right? I think probably in this topic, we also should at least have a certain, high level at the beginning, this kind of a definition or concept. When we talk about the level 2, level 3, level 4 autonomous networks, people roughly know which kind of automation we are able to offer, which kind of services we can offer, right? And between the customer, between the user and the CSP, and even between CSP and the vendors. I think that's very important also. Okay.
So yeah, that's really good. I agree that we need. Obviously, we have set a really good foundation now, and then we need to accelerate from now on. Is there a challenge in bringing, or maybe it's not a challenge? It's an open question. How do we get people excited about this, right? So Dong, to your point, so how do we now accelerate from here on and get more people excited? We were talking about use cases just now, right? So does it mean, for example, do we need to bring the end customers who may be enterprises? Let's talk about enterprises. Do we need to bring the enterprises, get them excited and bring them into the fold? And if they are convinced, then you can start building an ecosystem. There's a technology ecosystem you need to build, right? So that's, you can start doing that within our industry. But then the ultimate consumers of the services that are going to be delivered on top of autonomous networks are going to be the enterprises, for example. Do we need to bring enterprises on board? Is an open question. And is that a challenge, and or is that an opportunity even? Would you want to take the question?
Yeah, maybe I can
Diego,
start.
go ahead, Diego. Yeah.
Oh,
Diego.
it was Christian. No, go ahead,
Okay,
Christian.
I go. Okay, thanks, Diego. Yeah, I think the point is really important to understand that it's not only a telco standpoint. It's really a global standpoint, because in fact, as we said before, we can define different types of autonomous networks. Very simple, maybe only for telcos, just to replace the current actual networks to be simpler, to be less expensive, and so just really a very nice simple network that is not really autonomous, but really self-configuring, self-healing, and so on. So that's one key point, but that's only for telcos. And the point is that autonomous networks are more defined for use cases, for verticals, and really to be able to create new value and not only to save money. So we need to embark with us in the discussions, really all the different big players of the verticals, the players in the automotive networks markets, in the industry, in the medicine, and the all these players that are today that wants to have a solution, an answer to the big problems they were facing during the sanitary crisis in 2020. And thanks to our resilient networks, telcos were quite okay with this crisis, but many business were not that okay. So today they think that digital is really helping them, but not only digital, they need also to have something which is self-everything. So we need to embark them. We need to embark the all the ecosystems of as Dong said, all the ecosystem of standardization to make that interoperable. Because it's not only today verticals, one per one, just beside all themselves, but really all working together to get the global picture. So as a couple of years ago, 10 or 20 years ago, we started to have standards in telecoms. Now we have to have standards in these interactions between the different autonomous networks domains. So we would be able to exchange value and also to create these new types of value we can even not imagine that now. So that's really important. I would say mandatory that we not only talk between ourselves, telco people, but really embark all these guys, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Diego.
No, simply,
yeah.
It's the bigger. If we're talking about an ecosystem, the more diverse the ecosystem, the best, the better for the anyone in the ecosystem. In something that's in which what we intend is not only reduce costs or simplify management. We're talking about precisely the possibility of a new way of interacting with the network, consuming the services. Is essential that we have the consumers, and it's essential as well that we have. I mean, I was watching the chat as we were talking, and somebody was talking about the traditional vendors. We need for sure the current vendors, the current big guys in there, for sure we need them. And we need as well, if we want to have a healthy ecosystem, we need these small entrepreneurs and even companies that were not used or they were not part of the normal network ecosystem. And if we change the rules in which the usage of the services is performed, that could be attracted by that. In summary, the more the merrier.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just conscious of the time. We could go on and on. So I just wanted to quickly go through the set of questions so that we try and answer. So thanks to all the participants, all the audience for submitting the questions. So I'll just go one by one and see if we can answer some of those. So the first question, industry investment seems to be focused on 5G and edge with a particular focus on customer experience. So what do the panelists see as the major hurdles with this, and how can we accelerate progress in this area? 5G and edge for customer experience. Do you see the same? I see personally 5G and edge as more of a revenue generating opportunities. But I will say customer experience is sort of embedded in everything we do these days, right? I mean, you can't even offer a simple voice over LTE service without focusing on customer experience. So it is a given. It's sort of table stakes, right? Any other views in addition to?
Well, we definitely need to have that 5G investment done. If we don't have that, we won't be able to do autonomous networks. So that's the basic thing. Because autonomous networks would be based on all the virtualizations, all the slicing, all the edge computing stuff. So it's really the key points, the starting points to think about the real autonomous networks. If we don't have that, well, we'll have some automated networks and a couple of questions about difference between automated and autonomous. Clearly, it's different. It's not the same at all. On one side, we have very, let's say, all the legacy system that we try to automate with robotic stuff. And the other side is think about new value creation. Really think about new value creation, new services, new customer experience we can define thanks to another way of thinking with virtualization. How can we embark? We're talking about ecosystem, for instance. How can we embark the new applications from new startups, for instance, on that stack of applications, and that can start to be more autonomous thanks to their intelligence in the application codes. So really, that's thanks to 5G and other AI and all these things, investment we have to do, that we will be able to create these values thanks to the autonomous networks.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So next question, are we going to have autonomous networks in the 5G timeframe by 2026? Maybe a few levels of autonomous networks, maybe 3. That would be even great to achieve. But as we said, I think I will say that we don't want to get to the highest level. Maybe, I mean, I think the panelists think that that would be not good, but at least to level 3 and level 4. But having the ambition to get to level 5, I think would be good. To avoid Skynet, okay, so there you go. So what could be the role of ETSI SAI group? Do you want to take that, Diego?
Well, basically, the ETSI SAI group was precisely started by a group of people that were really concerned about the misbehavior of AIs in general. In all senses. I mean, it's not only that an AI can go crazy and do strange things. It's about the fact that it's quite curious that when talking about AIs or whatever is autonomous, we always think that they're going to behave properly. And they can be enhanced the same way that the gun can be in the hands of a policeman, or can be in the hands of a murderer. An AI can be in the hands of the black hats. And how you deal with that, and so you deal with adversarial AIs, and how you deal with misbehavior of AIs. As you mentioned this, Anil, at the beginning, it's about a human being behind the whole thing and having a control. Well, ETSI as AI is precisely focused in identifying the threats, not the threats, not only the threats on the AI, it's just the threats because we are using AIs, and we're trying to find ways of mitigating it. And at the end, as whatever that is automatic, at the end, you need a big red button that is going to be pushed by a human to stop the whole thing if required. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think we are over time. So I want to be respectful of everybody who participated. Thank you, panelists, Diego, Christian, and Dong. Hopefully this was useful to our audience. And speak to you all. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.